Hi, all. It's good to be back together and keep our conversation going about grief and loss. We have a new guest with us. Joe is with us from the UK,
Hi.
Hey, Joel.
and we're
Hey, Joe.
starting to talk a little bit about some of the losses that everyone's experiencing while we're dealing with COVID and being at home and things like that. So I'm going to open it up to our whole group to kind of talk about what that experience has been like. So who would like to go first?
I'll go first. So this is Cheryl. So I think this whole experience is quite interesting. Myself, I have had a transplant. I've had to be home isolated for as much as 2 months before. This somehow seems different. I mean, it is very different because it only really is affecting myself at the point of, recovering from transplant. This is affecting the whole world. So I have days where I feel so saddened by the amount of deaths and illness and tragedy that's happening out there all over the world. Right. So, but I also feel almost to a sense more isolated than I have in the past when I've been isolated longer after a transplant. And it's hard to kind of say why. I mean, I think it's because you can't really see anybody, and you know that everybody is going through something. It's not just yourself, and you want to so badly be there for people. At least personally, I feel that way. I want to so badly hug people, whether they're affected in a real serious, tragic way or just isolated like myself and kind of everyone else out there. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I myself have been told to stay inside for a minimum of 12 weeks. That's just order for anyone in my country who's got immunosuppressant problems. But that was about 4 weeks ago now. So it's been a month and it's been a long slog. I'm not going to lie, but I've been enjoying the time off. But I agree with you that they're not being able to have physical contact with people is the only thing that I'm finding actually very hard. I have to say, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been starting to feel antsy and stir crazy recently. I was doing fine with it, but not now. I'm getting on like week 6 or 7, and I'm missing, being able to see my friends in person and going out to the bar occasionally. For my mom's birthday was Sunday, and her big present was that she got to see my nieces and my brother and sister-in-law. They came to the house and social distance 6 to 8 feet away from us, and gave her presents, and it was really nice. But at the same time, it was hard because we couldn't touch them or hug them, and the littlest one, she's 4, and she kept trying to come up to grandma and give her a hug, and Karen, my sister-in-law, kept having to be like, no, you can't get closer.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. I mean, it's interesting because maybe some of the takeaway from all of this will be to appreciate each other that much more, and that family and friends are more important than gifts. Like, that would be a pretty grateful takeaway from all of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know everyone lives such busy lives, don't they? And they're always doing something, working, whatever happens to be. But I know when I come out of this, I'm going to be more appreciative of the people I know, my friends, my family, and maybe got to see them a bit more than I usually do. So that's what I'm going to take away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that I've heard people talk about is the fact that for folks with rare disease, you kind of are accustomed to living with things being unpredictable, that your health can change unexpectedly. And sort of now the rest of the world is kind of having that same experience, right? Of not knowing what lays ahead.
It's a taste of it.
Yeah.
And how do you cope with that? Right? What do we have to teach, perhaps, in this moment?
I think that's a great point, a great question. One thing that I did when I was going through kidney failure was volunteer, because I could no longer be reliable to go into work every day. And one thing I did was present to the community. So, I mean, I hadn't had my transplant. I wasn't, I didn't have to be cautious around people, but I presented to the kidney community, essentially. And one thing I spoke about at the end was to remember things because times are so uncertain, when you don't know what's happening tomorrow with your health, be around your support, find your support, because they're going to be there for you at the end of the day. And really be mindful. Like, that's when my mindfulness practice started, because it's just living for the day. You just have today. You have no idea what's tomorrow. So those are a couple of pieces that I learned from having a rare disease and that I spoke about.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think you mentioned last time we talked about making a gratitude list, and I think that's a great practice to do, reminding yourself of all the positives and the things to be thankful for in your life. And be mindful of that.
Even the small things, I agree.
Yeah.
The good
definitely.
intentions, or the gratitude. Like, okay, so this is my situation. So here's what I am grateful for. But some days it was hard. But yeah, no, that's a good point.
There's always something you can take from a certain situation. I always live by that. I think how matter bad the situation is, I think you can always take something positive from it. You just live and you learn. You have to move on with it, and like you agree, just take every day as it comes, and that's how you've got to live your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Makes you more appreciative.
Oh, sadly, yeah.
Are there things that you all are noticing now specifically? I mean, Steve, you gave that lovely but sad example with your mom and her birthday, but things that you're particularly feeling the loss of right now?
Well, I know I just so I've been getting paid through this for the most part, but I might have got my last paycheck last week and starting to feel a little bit more uncertain about the future with employment. I was able to save up a decent amount, and I don't have as many. I'm living with my folks right now, which is it's a blessing now. Like before it, I kind of felt like a little bit of a shame of it, but right now I've looked at it as more of a blessing, because basically my only really big bill is my car payment and my car insurance payment, and I have enough saved up to cover that for a while, and then I have other stuff too, but it's all stuff I can get rid of if I really want to, like subscriptions to different TV services and stuff. So I'm thankful that despite the fact that I don't know when my next paycheck's going to come, I have a little bit of a buffer. It actually did get a call back from. I was applying for all these work from home jobs over the past couple of weeks, and I didn't hear anything back. And then I got a message back from one of them, and it turned out that they didn't have the remote part set up yet. They were calling me for like a Charleston job, and I live in Michigan, so it's not going to work. But they did say they're going to get the that set up, and they took down my computer information to make sure that my computer would actually work with their system. So it was nice just to have somebody call me back. So I put in a good like 17, 20 applications.
Yeah.
And like one person called me back. This is, yeah. And I've been there before. It's just, it's been a good little while since I had to apply for jobs, and you forget about the what that waiting period feels like, especially right now when things are a little bit more uncertain, and you don't know exactly how people are going to handle hiring new people, or if they're going to hire new people.
Yeah, and for me personally, like thinking about loss, like one thing that I feel more at loss of than ever is just human contact. Like just I'm a hugger, and I just miss hugs. So bad. Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for the hug.
Best kind of people.
Yeah.
It's been tough. Yeah.
My mom's the same way. I'm that way to some extent, but yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah. I got lucky having to be in quarantine, being with Sarah. So we have each other, which is a blessing right now. And having no job is definitely tough, but unemployment has been helping me for I apply for unemployment online every week to see if they'll compensate me for the hours, which they don't do a full paycheck, but I get a couple hundred a week
So,
from them.
so you were able to get through to the unemployment?
Yeah, have you tried going online and signing up?
I haven't yet. Technically, I'm not unemployed yet, so I haven't tried that yet. But I know that at least on the phone, a lot of people have been having trouble, like calling and just getting busy signals. So it's good to hear that you were able to get through.
Yeah, online. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
go online you sign up on there, you can claim COVID-19, and they actually give you, if you qualify, an extra $600 for a paycheck. So if you try that, that might help you out with your money problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good to know. I think the system has gotten a little better. The first couple of weeks, I know people were having a really hard time getting through, but it sounds like it's getting better, that they're getting it up and running, and obviously it's so necessary.
In the UK, they've got an 80% pay. So if you're enrolled in that scheme, you can get the 80% pay even when you're not working in quarantine. So that obviously does really help me, and it's helped me for last month as well. So that's different, obviously, to where you're from. But yeah, it's definitely helped.
That's good to hear.
I saw something interesting from another family I know in the UK, that they were getting a voucher or some other way to help also get food delivered to make it
You
easier.
can get a food bank voucher, yeah. So you can go and collect food, or they'll come to your doorstep, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess they had a list of, I don't know, it was just for kids with chronic or high risk medical conditions, that they were, the NHS was like doing a special program. So I think there's a lot that some things the government's doing, or some things that even local communities are doing to try to bridge some of these gaps.
Yeah, that's one thing that is being seen, and probably across the board all over the world, is just the acts of kindness right now.
Yeah,
coming together, yeah.
And of course, Cheryl, I'm thinking about what you said about volunteering, which is so great, but then if you're also in a situation where you have to socially distance or isolate, it's harder to volunteer. Or how do you find a way to volunteer, online? Are there things that you can do so that you can kind of get that same positivity, but not have to do it in person?
Entrepreneurship is big right now, like what can I do? And
right.
Solo, like independently. I think entrepreneurship skills are increasing across the world.
Yeah.
But yeah,
makes sense.
It's hard being physically and socially distanced. It's hard. For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking of that independence piece too. I mean, Steve, it sounds like you're making the best of it, but in other circumstances, often because of illness, right, people end up, they're out on their own, and then they're moving home. They have to, depend on others to take care of them for a little while. That's a loss in and of itself. If you're used to, you're just out into the grown-up world and out into the world of work, and then often, setbacks happen.
It's so parallel to, it feels like the whole world has a rare disease, like, because it's like that's what so many people have to do, right? When you have a transplant, or when you have a rare disease that's making you ill, and you can't be independent or live on your own, and you are losing money because you can't work, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's so interesting right now.
Yeah, definitely.
It'll be interesting to see, as down the road, as this eases, what it'll mean for the illness world in general, but the rare disease world particularly, like what it does for other people's sort of awareness and empathy, what the situation is like. And
breeding or building resilience, essentially, right? I think, like, I've had conversations with friends where, one of my friends, her daughter has a rare disease, and we've talked before about how resilient we are, or how we just kind of nod and listen to our friends who maybe are talking about something that we don't find difficult because of what we've been through, like her with her daughter, me with myself. But then turning it around, looking at like, well, you know what, but we're lucky because we have been through these things, and something small that comes along that's significant to someone else will be like, no problem, like brush off the shoulders, no problem, we got this. Right? Like, but so many people out there right now are having that opportunity, as sad as it is, building resilience.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's difficult though.
Yeah.
This might be too controversial of a topic, but how do you feel about the protests going on right now about the lockdowns?
Like opening up things?
Yeah.
Well, being with a rare disease, I am so on the fence, because economically I get it, but from a protection side of things, because I don't want it to spread again, or just because we're flattening the curve. It's such a hard one, because I feel like, no, we need to give it more time. We're not ready. We don't want another wave of outbursts, but totally get the economic standpoint where some people businesses are really suffering. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing, like, I've been pretty much quarantined for 4 weeks because of my health issues. And like, I realized I really haven't seen the world. And we left New York City and came out to the far end of Long Island. So we're kind of in the country, which is lovely. But I'm not seeing, right, what's going on other than the news. Like, I'm not getting direct experience of what's happening in the world. You know, and so that's kind of been strange. Like, I don't even have a way of kind of knowing for myself, oh, that's what's going on. Everything is through screens. So, you know, feel a little disconnected from reality, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm able to walk around my neighborhood a little bit. Like, my world right now is kind of my suburb and my house. And sometimes I get this, like, people aren't supposed to go play on like the parks, you know, they got like the tape around them, and I get why kids are still going on there and doing it, and like teenagers and stuff, but then part of me has this gut reaction where I take it a little like personally, like, because if you caught it from doing this, then you're gonna like hurt me and all these other people, and you're being selfish.
Yeah, some people think that they're invincible and they can do as they please, but they don't realize that it can affect someone with a chronic illness. They breeze through life thinking, oh, I'm not old and I'm not really young, it won't affect me, but it's proven it does affect people any age. So they just be more mindful, really.
Exactly. Like in Michigan, just the other day, unfortunately we had a 5-year-old girl who passed away from COVID-19.
Oh.
And it's just awful.
That's sad.
Yeah. Like, no one's really immune. There are people who are way more susceptible, but no one's immune. Like,
it breaks my heart when I hear that. Yeah.
I wonder if some of this, like, need to try to go out and try to keep doing things despite all the warnings. Like, I think about when I talk to teenagers with cystinosis, with diabetes, with other things, and Cheryl, you'll probably recognize this phrase, but the idea of magical thinking, like that idea that, oh, I know it's bad. It's like, you know, it's bad if I don't take my cysteamine. It's bad if I don't take my insulin, but maybe it'll be different for me. I'll get away with it. Yeah. It'll be okay. And people get really upset with teenagers when you do that. I don't know if any of you did that as a teenager. I won't say anything if I've heard it. But in some ways, it's a defense, right? It's a way of like, I don't want to think about how serious this might be. So again, like, now the whole world is sort of trying to protect themselves from that scary reality, because, oh, maybe I'll be all right. Maybe I can go out and play.
It's like the 5 stages of grief a little bit, you know, like denial.
Good point.
Yeah.
Right. Denial, anger. Wait, we should know the 5. Bargaining.
Bargaining. Yeah.
Acceptance.
Is it grief?
Or something like that? Sadness?
It might just
No.
be sad. It may be sadness. I forget what it
Yeah.
might be sadness, anger. Denial is definitely the first one. And
Yeah.
then I think we talked about this earlier in our podcast about that idea of growth also as being part
Yeah.
of that process, that like at the end of it, not just that you accept it, but you like develop some perspective and you think about it. So, but like right now, I think we're all kind of moving between denial and anger.
Yeah.
You know, like
I think sometimes too, if you don't have direct experience, it's hard to relate. Like if you don't directly have COVID-19 or don't know anybody with COVID-19 or haven't ever had anybody who's had some experience similar, it's hard for you to get it outside your box and relate.
yeah, it's true. And there probably is still a big, there's probably still a portion of the country, the world, who haven't been directly affected. I mean, I think it's happening more and more because of economy, if not people that you know.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
It's like where do we develop empathy? Usually we develop empathy because something crosses our path, not because someone made an argument and told us, but because there's an emotional connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's similar to sort of again having a rare disease. You don't really understand the whole depth of it and the whole perspective of it unless you are directly related. You have a friend who has it, or your daughter or whoever. Like you don't really quite understand, or you don't know because you haven't been around it or exposed.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think over time, the challenge will be there are going to be people who had direct impacts in terms of, loss of their loved ones directly. And then there's going to be those of us who've sort of been witnesses, but, maybe are lucky enough to not have that happen. And
Yeah.
that's going to be a strange, like, divide almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will, because it's kind of similar in lacking understanding because you haven't quite been through it. You can certainly have empathy,
Yeah,
but not so much understanding, right? Completely understanding.
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see at the end of all of this as well, like we talked about the 5 stages of grief, like, or is it the 5 stages of grief?
5 and maybe 6.
Yeah. Like how will that form with individuals, or how much time after, everything kind of hopefully gets back to some sort of normal, what will that look like for people? That's
Right.
something else that I've thought about.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is grief is different for everybody. I mean, it's stages of grief, but the reality is like people move through them in lots of different ways. And some people sort of go through that and get to a sort of calm, accepting place, in, I don't know, a year or two. Other folks are still, and I mean, I don't know, I lost my parents in the last decade. And I
Yeah.
know my emotions just come up and down when different things remind me of that, right? So it's not like it's ever over, but it gets to like a milder place.
Right.
It's easier.
So,
Yeah.
on the other hand, there are other folks for whom these losses are going to be beyond what normal grieving is, and they're really going to be truly traumatic, right? And, what's it like to live with PTSD? And there are people with illness, right, that really live with true PTSD because of scary things that you experience with the illness.
Absolutely. And those triggers, right? Like I'm sure people all over the world after this will experience triggers as a result of this, because I know for sure, for me personally, and just thinking at the top of my head, I'll have to think about that. But a trigger has happened where I was at work, for example, I had gone through all my kidney failure, I had gone through dialysis, I'd gone through losing a bunch of money, living with my parents, like Steve, you mentioned. I'd gone through all of that. And cut to a year later, I'm going through kidney failure, or sorry, rejection. But hearing that at that point in my life, after being through all that, set me into like a complete breakdown in my workplace, just like hiding and crying. Whereas before all of this, when I first found out my kidney was going through kidney failure, essentially, I was like, okay, so what do I have to do next? And I was pretty calm about it. Whereas like this trigger happened and it just set me off. And it turned out to be fine. And it wasn't anything more than some mild rejection that within a year I was fine, but it just put me right back to like, oh my gosh, kidney failure and losing all my money, and I can't live it by myself anymore. And it just went whoosh, like my mind was a million miles a minute, like just from that one phone call. Like, even though they were saying, don't worry, like, you're no way in bad shape. It's just, there's just some blood work that's kind of numbers that are increasing. And it was like a trigger. So it's kind of like worldwide, what are our triggers going to be after all of this, like at the end of all of this?
Yeah. Right.
I think my goal is to never use the words "don't worry" ever again. Well, in part because, right, like telling anybody not to worry when they're worried about something. I had that happen last year with a doctor when something was going on that I was like, I don't know if this is a problem or not, but can you, check it out? Can I come in for some tests? And she kept like writing to me and calling me and saying, oh, don't worry, I'm sure it's nothing. And I'm like, please don't tell me not to worry. You might be right, but you have to allow me the chance to be worried.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? And the reality is, like, after all of this, people are going to be worried the minute they're going to hear things and be like, oh my gosh, does that mean we have to quarantine again? Or,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Or another one too is if you do experience the loss of a loved one or the loss of a friend, like it's, oh, are you okay? I really don't like that one.
Right.
Well, no, I'm not.
Right.
Like,
what's the right thing to say?
I'm here for you. That's what I say.
What do you say?
I am here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. And that's it. Like, I love you.
Yeah.
That's because yeah, I'm not okay.
Right.
Or I'm composed and someone says that and I just start bawling. No, I'm not okay.
Right, because if you ask, you have to be prepared for the answer I'm going to give you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Maya, if you don't want to hear or don't say don't worry, what would be your other phrase or catchwords or yeah, I've put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think I try to say, I can see that you're worried about this, or I can hear that you're worried about this. Tell me what you're thinking right now. Like, that's what I try to do in my, in my clinical role. And I think with friends, I mean, and I had a friend who lost her dad last week from COVID, and he was in a nursing home. He was older, but it still doesn't make it okay, right? And so just to think about how to sort of say, how are you doing? But to say it in a way that I really wanted to know, not just how are you, or how are you coping with that, but like, really, how are you doing? And it actually gave her the space to tell stories and start laughing and like talk about good things about her dad. So it wasn't just about, the sad stuff. It was also like, oh, but I got to spend a lot of time with him in the last year, and I know he was well taken care of. And so, it doesn't have to all be, I think we're also afraid, right, to ask those questions because we're going to get scary stuff, just the same way we were afraid to talk about other grief and loss stories. But when you start opening up, you can see that people have moments of sadness to talk about, but then just like here, we're laughing, we have stories to tell that help make it easier and that add to that resilience side of things.
Yeah, I like how you say, like, I understand you're worried, or just because you're acknowledging it. And I think just sometimes people just want to be heard or acknowledged. And so I think that's really, like, that can be really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, there were moments in my life where it was pointed out to me, like, all the things I was doing wrong at a very low point in my life. And there was no being there, supporting, understanding, or acknowledging how I'm feeling. It was just like an attack. So it's to me, I learned powerful in terms of just having someone acknowledge how you're feeling or supportive towards you.
Is that like you statements versus I statements?
I feel, or don't be like, you did this.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Acknowledge. Yeah. Healthy conversations. Through grief. Yeah.
Jana, I noticed that you're being rather quiet. What would you like to share with us?
Well, the only thing I've been doing lately to keep sane is I don't watch the news showing the death toll and and the numbers in the
Mm.
corner, that just makes me nervous. I don't like it.
Well, me too. I try and avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been trying to avoid that, and I just like watch Netflix or Hulu or something. Something that has some comedy or action in it, so I don't have to think about it.
It's a good coping strategy.
Yeah, right.
Protecting yourself is a really good coping strategy.
Well, I watched the news this one day, and ever since then I haven't. It was this Dateline special, and they actually went inside a hospital in Italy and showed what people
Oh,
were
yeah.
going through in real life
That's
time.
right.
Uh, it was quite an eye opener. I mean, they were showing makeshift ventilators where people were struggling to breathe, and it was really hard to take in.
Yeah.
Mm.
So ever since then, I don't really watch too much of the news.
Mm.
Yeah, the New York Times published a
Yeah.
piece last weekend or just this Sunday. I can't tell time anymore. Where the reporter actually went into Montefiore, which is the hospital where I've worked. And it was the first time that a reporter had been in a hospital in the US, and just walking around patients and caregivers. And so not only was it, wow, this is an American hospital, but I was like, it's my hospital.
Yeah.
And so that really made it, that again was something that really made it kind of hit home. But then the good news is they also send out like videos of now that when they send people home, they play like a song in celebration every time
Yeah.
someone's extubated, every time someone goes home, which is kind of awesome. And, all the nurses are like dancing in the hallways. So, there's that sense that we can help people get better, but it's still, there's so much up in the air. There's so much uncertainty.
Every day they're learning new things, aren't they? So every day we're taking a step closer to overcoming it. So they've got to look at it like that. There's always a way to better it, understand it properly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's just got to happen so fast, right? Like we all know you guys have all benefited. I've benefited too, right? From science figuring out, right, how to make treatment available, how to make treatment better. And we know it happens, but think about how slowly the timeline has been for
Oh man.
cystinosis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know when I interviewed the young adults a couple years ago, right, people talked about being on study drugs and how gross they were and how horrible it was. So,
Yeah.
that process is really slow. And now we're saying like, no, we need this now. Like it's like a moon landing. We need it. We're in a race.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like this community knows just how tough research is and how slow the wheels turn. So we have another guest. Christina is with us from, where in the country are you, Christina?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Awesome. I love Charleston. Such a beautiful city. Hopefully we all get to go there again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So you were sharing with us also a little bit about your experience now as we're all dealing with COVID.
Right. So basically, I stopped working, I guess, a month ago, mostly because I'm immunosuppressed. I work at Starbucks, and some people decided to stay, but right now I can get work catastrophe pay until the end of next month. So I've chosen to do that, and I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen after that, because if this COVID thing is still going on, I don't want to risk my immunosuppression.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that's gonna change. Basically, it sounds like if I stop working, I'm not gonna get any help after the end of next month. So I pretty much don't have any other way to make money and pay my bills. So I don't really know what I'm gonna be doing at that point. I don't know if you guys have any advice on things that you guys have done from being not working or anything like that.
Coping strategies.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help financially.
I mean, we were talking about unemployment a little bit earlier, but it sounds like you're in that crunch that if you don't go back, it's a choice. It's not being laid off. So that I guess would make unemployment challenging.
Yeah, I mean, but basically they're saying that I have to, if I stop working at the end of next month, I have to like reapply for the job again. So basically, I'm being let go.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, which is really weird and complicated to me that they're doing it that way. But I don't know where to go from there, pretty much as far as unemployment goes and qualifying for it and all that. So I actually was on the phone with, well, trying to be on the phone with unemployment today, and 2.5 hours later, I got disconnected. So I'm gonna have to try again tomorrow and see what they have advice-wise for the COVID and me not being able to work starting the month after this month. So.
Have you tried online? Because Jana was talking about doing it online.
I applied for it online, but I did it incorrectly because it says, "Are you able to work?" And I put no, but technically I am able to work. So I should have put yes and like, but I'm immunosuppressed and all this stuff. But so basically I didn't get accepted for it because I put that I'm not allowed to go back to work. So I have to go through this whole process again and try to call them and fix everything. So that's where I'm at.
Is the company, I feel like it sounds like Starbucks at least did this catastrophic thing to try to help people through.
Yeah, well, it's ending for most people on the 5th of May. But since I'm immunosuppressed, they're letting it go until the end of May.
Okay.
And so I'll get paid until the end of May, average of the amount of money I was making when I was working. So, but it's just June. Yeah, June, what I'm going to do. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know what I'm going to do when that happens. Like if we're still on COVID or it's getting worse, or if it's getting better, then I'm not as worried. But if it's getting worse or staying the same, then I don't know what I'm going to do as far as work goes.
Yeah.
Have you tried NORD? I know they have an emergency relief fund for people with cystinosis.
I don't even know what that is.
The National Organization of Rare Diseases, Rare Disorders.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I guess I could try that if things happen to not work out for me.
Yeah, they have a number you can call and see if you qualify for, emergency assistance. Like they don't do stuff like pay for your medication, but they'll help you with rent or, like car payments or something like that.
Okay, that's good to know.
So Sarah's working right in the kitchen in the hospital.
Yeah, yes, she is.
So, and thinking about ways to stay safe while being immunosuppressed.
I'm reducing exposure by wearing a mask at work and wearing gloves. I wash my hands constantly. I try and maintain distance from people at work. And at home, I wash my hands. I disinfect and sanitize. When I take the dogs for a walk, I will bring a hand sanitizer with me and wear a mask and wash my hands when I come back. Every time after I'm done with work, I will take a shower right away and wash my clothes to make sure there's no transference because I work at a hospital. I'm managing with stress and anxiety. It's a day-to-day thing for me. Some days I get stressed about it because I'll hear that there are more patients coming in to our company who have COVID, so I stress out about that, but I try and think of it as if I just follow what I'm supposed to do, wear a mask, practice the distancing, wash my hands, and always take a shower when I get home, that I'll have the best chance to not be exposed to it. And it also helps having Cass and Jan at home to vent my worries and stress and anxiety too, so I know I'm not alone in this because I see everybody else in this community who is at home worried about the same things because of all the stuff and all the medications and everything we're going through. I am maintaining contact with others, my family. I call, I do text message, I emails, or send them funny pictures or funny posts. I contact people like my friends or the groups I'm in through email or text messaging or through Facebook or social media. Other than that, that's the only ways I communicate is with the email, the phone, the social media. I try not to visit anybody because I don't want to risk exposure, or I don't want to endanger that person either, just because of the whole cross-contamination.
Fortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to do that in every restaurant and coffee
Yeah.
shop across the country.
No.
Especially
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not a healthcare facility that I work at. I feel
Right.
like it's easier when it is a healthcare facility.
Yeah.
There's been some talk, right, of like creating phone apps that will tell you if you're in contact with someone who's been positive, and you know,
Yeah,
I
I've heard
mean,
about
I mean, giving up a little bit of privacy if we're going to do that, though. I think that will be reacted to strongly.
Oh yeah.
what
I never even knew they were doing that.
the government is
Yeah.
deciding to, well, some of them have decided to track your phone or use your phone to see if you're doing social distancing. And that in itself, if they decide to do that, like they're actually trying to look for people to go through and see. I mean, your name wouldn't show up or anything, but they're actually trying to find a way to track and make sure that people are social distancing.
Yeah. You know, Cheryl was talking about volunteering earlier, but even thinking about jobs that are connected to this issue that may be out there is I read an article this week about departments of health are hiring people to do tracking, to do phone calls, to kind of do the detective work of figuring out how something got transferred.
Well, Joe, can I ask you, how have you been dealing in terms of like coping strategies so far over the past, I think you said 4 weeks?
Yeah, I've been in isolation for about 4 weeks now. Really just trying to keep busy. I picked up a few courses just to try and just keep my mind active, really. Otherwise, I might turn to mush.
Yeah.
Just keep doing something. Otherwise, I would stare at the walls and get really bored, and then my mental health would go down. So you just got to balance what to do really at one time, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Christina, what about
know.
you?
Yeah.
What have I been doing?
Coping,
Well,
yeah.
moved in with my friend like a month ago, but I still haven't really unpacked my room. So I'm sleeping on the couch because I'm being kind of lazy. And I'm really particular about where things go in my room. So it takes me a while to organize stuff.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
get it.
yeah, that's like the main thing. And just taking my dog for walks and watching a lot of Netflix. That's the main things that we've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, walks. Walks are my savior, getting outside into like a forest or a park where it's not crowded. That's
Yeah.
been my
Mm.
savior.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well,
Anyways,
it's not
yeah, like coping. I know we mentioned in Joe or Christina. I know you're kind of maybe more on the spot, Joe. I don't know, maybe you thought about it a little bit over this last hour, half hour.
Mhm.
What would you say in terms of like your loss that you're experiencing right now, or even the parallel to cystinosis and COVID, like experiencing cystinosis and COVID? What would your like experience be?
Just yeah, as I said before, the absence of physical contact has been quite hard. Because when I worked at a pub, that's English enough as you can get it. But yeah, so I was always surrounded by quite a lot of people, and to go from that to only me and my mum in the same house, so that to another person, is quite a big difference, and it had a bit of an impact on me at first. But as most things, you get used to it, and then you adapt and you learn from it. And now it's just pretty much a way of life, isn't it? But yeah, it's just the absence of physical contact and just conversation without looking at a screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
face to face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 3D rather than 2D.
Thank gosh for things like Zoom and WhatsApp and virtual conversations.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
we'd be pen pals right now. Otherwise.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, so much has changed in the last, what, 20, 25, 30 years, in the rare disease world because of having the internet, of having the ability, having search tools to look up information, and then having social media. I mean, what exists on social media now is phenomenal. So if you are someone, getting a new diagnosis, or your child getting a new diagnosis, you can find people to support you
Oh
so
yeah.
much more quickly than probably like what all of your parents probably went through.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Mm.
so, it's just interesting to think about what this shift will do in terms of what it means to be connected and being able to find people
Mm.
to communicate
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you all pretty, I mean, I think we've got a biased sample here, but are you all users of like sort of all the social media things that are out there?
Um,
Or did it
I
change
use
over time?
I use Facebook probably the most, and then I've been talking to one friend. We play FIFA 18 together on PlayStation, and do the online gaming thing. So we talk to each other through that, and most, I've been texting a lot of people, talking to them through text and using WhatsApp. Yeah, mostly I use Facebook as far as social media goes.
Yeah, I use mostly Facebook. I have Instagram as well, and it's interesting to mention that because there are a lot of cystinosis groups, like you mentioned, Maya, on Facebook. And like 30 years ago, when my parents had me and I was maybe only 1 or 2 years old, they had face-to-face, in-person parent support groups, which we still do now, but that's all they had. So it is interesting you say that because they had to physically go and meet,
Yeah.
and then a few issues happened. So a few parents left, and then it turned into nothing. Whereas the
Now.
positive of social media is you can just keep increasing and keep increasing.
Yeah.
100 people.
Mm. When I was younger, obviously I wasn't on any social media, and I didn't really know anyone who had cystinosis or anyone with a rare disease, and I wasn't really in contact with anyone who had that as well. But it's only the last couple of years that I've actually gone on Instagram and got to contact people with this, and it's just opened such a big world of knowledge, and it's helped me learn so much about my own condition, and other people's experiences as well. It's just amazing how much it has widened my knowledge of just what's going on, really. Yeah, it's really helped that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else we want to pull in or talk about?
Anything you've been mulling over? Or?
For me, just like this is kind of becoming a normal right now because everybody's going through it. So it's starting to become normal, which is not really good, but I'm just ready for things to get back to the actual normal that we were used to.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting for us, like in the community, because we don't know when we'll be able to fly and go to our different conferences and such. Like the last weekend was the Day of Hope conference, which was canceled, obviously. So things like that will be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virtual.
I think it'll be interesting to see how, these conferences that people have come to really rely on, like it's great to talk online, but it's so different when you're able to be together in person.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I think this has taught us that, like, well, even if you can't get to the conference, we can include you. Like, there are ways to do it. And we used to use technology as an excuse. Like, oh, we don't know if we can do that, or, oh, it's expensive, or, how do we set up the, cameras in the room to record everybody? Like, it used to be a big deal. That excuse is gone. But, it's going to mean, do we only have online meetings, or do we have a mix of some people are there in person and some people are online, and, how do we do that well?
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer like the actual conferences that we go to all over the place and meet face to face and actually see each other and compare what's going on.
Yeah. I think having both is good because I know not everybody can make it to those conferences because of in person because of maybe health issues or expense. So having a way for everybody to be able to access it is good.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, like to see if anything develops from this in terms of, hey, well, we could do these Zoom meetings, like, or these Zoom conferences or whatever platform they use. Maybe we could somehow include what you just said, Steve, like people who can't make it. Or I wonder how many companies or individuals would be like, hey, we could do this from home, like working, and maybe it'll benefit like rare disease and like disability communities or just
That's a
individuals with
really
disabilities.
interesting point, Cheryl. That idea that like we can't, when people need accommodations because they can't be, 40 hours a week sitting in an office or sitting in a building, that idea that, hey, are there other ways to get some of these tasks done? Obviously, some things you need to be there in person. I can't get my virtual cup of Starbucks, I guess. But a lot of things could be done in a way that you don't have to be there every single day.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right, that might open up windows for lots of folks who have sort of assumed, oh, I can't work because I can't get there reliably. But if, I only have to physically be there in person maybe 2 out of my 5 days, that might be something you could kind of conceptualize and come up with the energy for.
Yeah. And employers can kind of start to look at that as a way of inclusiveness for their companies. Like, we can offer this. We can do this from home. We've proven when the time came and we were desperate to figure something out, and now we can. And open up, work sharing and such, like virtual work. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where this world goes.
Yeah. I'm so glad I think we're all trying so hard to be hopeful, right? And see all the possibilities of change, many things that, we've asked for in other times where people just said, oh no, that's too complicated, or no, we can't do it. And now it's like, well, now everybody has to do it. It seems a lot more possible now, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah. It's true.
So, it kind of speaks to like going from like, the cystinosis community to the rare disease world, right? So where we go from, right, a few thousand people, right, to, I should know these numbers off the top of my head and I don't. Carrie would be really mad at me, right? Like what's the overall US or world population of people with rare diseases, right? It's, when you get to that level of numbers, it's as common as people with cancer. Like it's not a rare number anymore. And the same thing, like this is not a small number of people being impacted anymore. So that the systemic changes are going to happen because we have numbers.
Right.
Exactly right.
Some of the good stuff I've seen on the news have been there's been like shop teachers who've created the PPE equipment through some of those 3D printers, like the face mask covering things, the plastic face masks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a demonstration of how amazing we are and how like kind acts, right? Where everyone's pitching in and getting their 3D printers to help the healthcare system with things like those face mask things that alleviate the discomfort behind the ear. So yeah, like things like they're just everyone's coming together. Like it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Christina, anything?
I mean, my puppy's sleeping right next to me, and she's cute.
Yeah. I heard her bark. I saw her back in there a little bit ago.
Oh my gosh, she's beautiful. Important coping mechanisms, right? Having that company.
Yeah. Well, there's one city where their dog shelter for the first time ever had no dogs waiting to be like adopted. So that was kind of cool. Like everyone, that's the coping strategies, right? Like, hey, I need a buddy.
Yeah. I just hope people stick with that after this is over. Like they're not like, oh, well, now I have to go back to work and I'm busy and I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, like a rash decision. Like, hopefully it wasn't a rash decision.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are fostering though, like at least shorter term, like, hey, I can do this for a little while.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
My son was trying to convince me and I was like, I don't know, because we'd have to be prepared to go back to a much smaller apartment that might not be so accommodating. So, but
yeah. Long-term thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe and Christina, it's so cool you guys could join.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good to hear some other voices.
Yeah. Yes. Oh man. Yes.
Okay, guys, that's the end of our episode. Thanks so much for listening. We want to again thank CRN for helping support and allowing us to create this podcast, which has helped so many individuals in the community.
If you have feedback, questions, or future topics you'd like us to discuss, just contact us at our email, sheely194@hotmail.com, or you can contact us through our A-Lab Facebook page. And I just want to say, talk to us, reach out, we're listening. And please tune in for our future next podcast, which will be about transitioning from teens to adults and the issues that develop.
Stay safe and be well, everybody.
Bye.